let's move into our debate for the week. This is...
didn't we just have our debate for the week?
Yeah, exactly. Top 5 overrated games versus top 5 underrated games. We're going to try to bang this out in about 20 minutes if we can, because we are running a little bit long here. So, Tom...
Wait, Alfred wants to, because Alfred wants to contribute here.
I have the tiniest contribution, and it is kind of discussive.
Sure.
Let's say that's not a word, but let's just say. So my thing is overrated is light games, quick games, and underrated is heavy. Because in my mind, oftentimes, and I've been discovering this in my new kind of gaming community, a lot of people are like, oh, light games are so fast at the table, we're going to play real quick and we can get onto the big games. But the truth of the matter is that everything takes some time, everything takes some like kind of mental space to get to the table. And I think in that same period of time, you can get a heavier game out there that will be more enriching. And a lot of people are intimidated at first by the heavy. But in many ways, it's just a kind of a problem of the industry in terms of explanation, in terms of just kind of getting people into the headspace. And once you get a heavy game in front of someone, they really feel like they're grokking it.
Yeah,
they're lifelong. Some of these lightweight games, there's just not enough decision making. They're just not quite gamey enough. And I just know this is going to be reflected in your both of your lists, and I'm just really excited to hear. But I really want to see more heaviness where I'm at, and I think it's just going to be a little bit of a different face.
Well, I think unfortunately our lists are going to kind of reflect that to a certain extent. I think a lot of them are going to be. It's based. I have a feeling we're going to be sort of dogging on casual games and bigging up heavy games.
Though. I think that's really going to be interesting.
Maybe not. I don't know. We will see.
Because to me,
I love how our little rules lawyer here just totally upended our whole discussion and just said, no, let's talk about more like global issues and heavier games are underrated and lighter games. It's awesome.
I agree, but I also think I don't want to bash casuals because they're a massive and important part of this hobby, and not everybody has the time or inclination that we have to spend thinking about and playing board games, or just the luxury of a group of players who are willing to show up every week and play anything.
I just want people to be, by default, be intimidated. I've seen a lot of people now, I've met a lot of people who are like, you know what, I don't have enough time for heavy. I don't know about getting this to the table.
Sure.
I think just overcoming that preconceived idea that everything has to take hours.
Yeah. To me, the main thing I want to do with this, because I really am not into just bashing games. This is about recommending games that I think you overlooked. And instead your focus has been drawn to these, and I think these would suit you better. I think that's how I'm moving into this.
Every single one of my overrated games, I have something else to recommend.
Good, yeah, and I want to remove the barrier for entry for a lot of games, which is I think what Alfred's talking about. I want to remove the fear of larger, heavier, more complicated games.
Totally.
Should we do overrated first then?
Sure.
All right. You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
My number 5 overrated game is actually number 24 on the Board Game Geek. It is Caverna.
Ooh.
I have played Caverna a couple times recently. Caverna is one of those games that I have on my shelf because it plays up to 7 players, and occasionally you'll play 6 or 7, and you don't want to split up into separate tables. Everybody wants to play the same thing. What can we play that's meaty enough?
Totally.
And out comes Caverna. I have decided, having played it a couple of times recently, that I don't think I need to play Caverna anymore because if I also have Agricola, I think Agricola is a far superior game.
Well, okay. Here's my argument for Caverna.
Sure.
If you're only going to play Agricola once a year, just get Caverna, because it's not going to be enjoyable with the cards. You're not going to have as fun of an experience. You're not going to know the cards. You're just going to get walloped by the better player. Caverna is a evening of the playing field. It is all the information on all cards on the table, no pun intended, and it's just here's all the buildings and go for them.
The situation, because I've played it a couple of times recently with people that have played it but haven't played it in a year or two, is sadly that doesn't end up being true. It ends up being the exact same situation in which the people that have played it more and know it better are the ones who remember of the 75 buildings that are sitting out here that I can buy. They know which ones to take.
Yep.
And if anything, it makes it even worse because they have the full menu to choose from, and they can choose these are the four buildings I'm going to get in this order and win that way. Whereas the person that's only played it once a year is out of luck. Listen, I think that Caverna is an interesting game, but I do not think that the addition of the adventurers, I do not think that the addition of the mines makes the game better. It's certainly muddier as far as the theme. Agricola is beautiful. I will say that the best game is Agricola with the Farmers on the Moor expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people have that expansion. Not a lot of people have played it, but it is great. It introduces a lot of the things that Caverna actually does as terms of innovations, which is the need to take your farmland spaces and make them into farmland in the first place. Mm-hmm. And it deals with heating as an element, which means that it's not always best to just take family growth the first moment you can take it. That's my number 5.
I'm very excited to try the new version of Agricola too. I'd like to see what Uwe balanced it and sort of took half the cards out and sort of made it a little more of a tweaked, simple, balanced version. I'd like to try that.
Totally agree.
My number 5 top overrated games is a game called Tokaido. Now, Tokaido is a game that, and again, these are just sort of, I hate just sort of bashing games. I just don't think it's fun. I don't, and I've tried, like, I remember like this, so the game is basically just roll and move. I mean, you're not rolling a die, but you're just moving along a track, and you're sort of just. I don't understand it. I think it's my reason for saying these games are overrated because I think they're bad entry points. I think a lot of people end up trying this as their very first game, and if this is what you think modern gaming is, I don't think you're getting a clear picture of it.
It is one of the most gorgeous boards.
But that's it. So a lot of my games are going to be. This is it's beauty over function, you know.
Bimbo.
I mean, yeah,
It's a bimbo.
It's beautiful, but there's nothing going on here. I don't. I mean, this is as you might as well just play Go Fish. I think it's as.
Have you ever played Tokaido,
I
Alfred?
did, yeah. I would say it's a minbo more than a bimbo, but that's neither here nor there. I have played it. I enjoyed it.
Is it a thimbo for them?
Yes, let's do that. I would say that, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it in the sequence of other games and seeing a different space.
Again,
I like exploring.
I really don't want this to be bashing casual games, but to me, it's just like when I see this and I see casual gamers playing this.
Sure.
I just want to grab them and say, "Oh, let's try. You're going to love this more. Like, no, put this aside. Put this aside. This isn't as good as the other casual games that I think you get into. You know,
we can court a little controversy. We can just get into it.
I know.
No,
it's hard as the game enthusiast. It's very hard for me. I love all games. Look, it's like even bad pizza is still delicious. You know, it's still pizza.
When I see Tokaido played, I'm also mystified a little bit.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're not just bashing light games. Caverna was my first thing.
Of course.
Okay, my number 4 is one of the games that the ATTA just named Best Game of the Year. Best Strategy Game of the Year
Root
was Chronicles of Crime.
Oh, yeah.
Chronicles of Crime is not a strategy game.
I didn't enjoy it.
It is not a strategy game. It is currently 111 and just shouldn't be there. Look, it is a deduction game, but it's a gimmick.
But you're the game. Because the game is just trying to trick you constantly, and there's no actual logic to most of the answers, it felt like.
Correct. Detective is a game that is far superior and very interesting. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective also scratches the exact same itch and is fantastic. Mm-hmm. This game is the least interesting, the least strategic of those options. It just has a very cool AR sort of effect by you being able to use a smartphone to look around a crime scene, which, by the way, is cool, but is a gimmick that is in the service of a game that is not as good as many others in its entry. And I'm sorry to see that it is the one that's winning awards instead of a game like Detective.
I mean, just to be the voice of Jesse in the
Sure.
podcast, if I may come in, I know he
Oh, sorry. I was trying to do the voice of Jesse.
he very much enjoys the game, and I believe part of that is the way they're utilizing technology to further the game space. I think
And that's probably the most interesting part about it. There's a little bit of like virtual reality going on there.
Totally.
My next top 5 overrated game is the number 1 game on Board Game Geek. This is Gloomhaven. Now look,
What?
I love Gloomhaven.
What?
I love Gloomhaven. It shouldn't be the number 1 game on Board Game Geek.
All right.
And I love Gloomhaven. Here's a couple. I'm just giving you my quick 5 seconds on Gloomhaven. I think most people spend $120 on this game and play 5 scenarios, and then it sits and collects dust for the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. I think unless you know exactly what this is and you have a dedicated group and you're going to put 100 hours into this and you absolutely love it, I think take that $120 and buy 4 other games. I think most people
Did you read my Tapestry review?
play 7 or 8 times, play scenarios.
No, yeah.
And I think the first scenario or 2 in this game is way too hard. I think it's and not a fair ramp up. I think this is a game that attracts casual players. This is a game that attracts D&D players. And I think the first game smacks you into the dirt. The first scenario smacks your ass so hard and just says like, do you really want to play this game? And I think most people just go, I don't know. I do. I spent $120. So yes, I do. But why is this so hard? I think there's a tough ramp up.
Yeah.
And I think it's fun that Isaac did that. And I think but it's like, this game is actually a hardcore game. This is a very tough, hardcore game. And I think it screams casual. And I think a lot of people have sort of regretted their purchase a little bit. That being said, I think it's an incredible game.
I think that's the reason why it's rated number 1 is because people feel like they earned it.
It's brutal.
It's a brilliant. It's a brilliant design, but number 1 maybe problematic.
That's all I'm saying. I don't think it's hard to say that I don't necessarily think that should be the number 1 game on Board Game Geek.
I hear you.
Still a great game.
My number 3 is a heartbreaker. This is one of those games where the first half an hour after the rules explanation, I'm like, oh my God, I am so into this game. The first half hour of play, it's like, this may be the best game I've ever played. And then at the 1 hour mark, I'm like, no, no. Dominant Species. Dominant Species, number 51. Area control game. It's sort of got a lot of El Grande to it. But it uses, species and evolution to some degree, and climate, and it's got so many great ideas in it. But the dominance cards, which unfortunately are one of the main aspects of the game, are swingy and random, and they force a take that, which creates a dynamic of...
It's a hardcore Euro that at the very end goes, no, we're a war game.
And it just encourages the most grotesque sniveling of any game I've ever played.
That is true. Don't do me. Don't do. No Ice Age on me. No Ice Age on me.
It's horrible.
Chad Jensen, the designer of Dominant Species, has been fighting cancer this year, and we absolutely hope that he recovers quickly and gets healthy. But no, I'm just saying but it sadly came in the midst of his redesign of Dominant Species. And I really hope we, for the least of all reasons, get to see that again. But mostly, I just hope he's okay.
We hope he's well. We hope he.
But I only bring
quickly.
that up because he was in the midst of a redesign of it that was literally at the top of my number 1 most excited things for possibly coming out because of the potential of that game.
The reason it's so overrated for me is that it was so close to
perfection,
absolute greatness.
My number 3 is Blood Rage.
Ooh,
Blood Rage,
Eric.
I think, is a lovely design that is just not as good as the game that it came from, which is the same designer, Eric Lang's other game, Chaos in the Old World. I think in terms of asymmetric people on a map games,
sure.
I think Blood Rage is, I think a lot of my top 5 order games are games where it's style over function, and I think the minis are so gorgeous and it's such a beautiful looking game. Although it's funny, the minis are so gorgeous and then the board is so not gorgeous. And that I think it usurped a lot of better games in the genre because of how awesome it looks.
I remember playing it at your bachelor party.
We did. We played it a bunch. It had just come out.
Right. It had just come out. And I still have kind of fond memories of it because of that whole weekend was a lot of fun. But at the same time, it's one of those games that when I see it on a shelf, my initial impulse is to, I don't think I really need to play that again.
It's also, it felt wildly unbalanced to me in terms of some of the cards. Yeah.
Fair enough. Number two for me is a game that has tricked you all.
Oh.
You need to stop it.
Oh.
You need to stop it. You have been fooled into thinking this is a good game, and it is not a good game. Number 17 all-time Board Game Geek is Seven Wonders Duel.
Ooh.
I have hinted at this before on this podcast. I am now going to come out and say it. There is no game here.
Ooh.
It is not a game. All right? Each action that you take,
like
you have essentially only 2 choices. Maybe a third choice because you have powers that you can use. It is the actual decision space that you have in the game is so minimal. It is on rails because you have to choose between taking A or B 90% of the time. And of that 90% of the time, 70% of the time, there's no question A is significantly better for the path that I've chosen than B. And when half of your decisions in the game are on autopilot, what are we really talking about? It is, people talk about it all the time as a 2-player game, and I cannot hold my tongue. I am constantly telling people, here's a better 2-player game. Here's another 2-player game. Please do not play Seven Wonders Duel. Feel very strongly about this.
Very, very niche. My number 2, top 5 overrated game of all time, is Seventh Continent.
Oh.
Now, I own Seventh Continent. I've spent $200 probably on my Seventh Continent collection.
You definitely have.
And it's not worth all of the fuss. I think it is interesting. I think I will sell it as soon as I finish things. My biggest 2 problems with it is to finish the beginner scenario for Seventh Continent takes 20 hours to complete if you play it correctly. That is more than I've played most of my favorite board games of all time. And that's just to see the ending of the story. I think it does also a detective thing, wherein a Chronicles of Crime thing, wherein a lot of the clues that you're chasing are just tricks on you. That just, oh, well, this is logically what it should be. Oh, and it's just not. But then it's just a coin toss. Well, are they tricking me, or is this really the clue? And you could spend a couple hours going in the direction of a trick.
It becomes choose your own adventure.
Without logic, really. And it's also one of those experiences, much like Gloomhaven, where people go in being, oh, this is going to be, it's Castaway, the board game, and I'm on an island, and I have these. It's not. It is an efficiency puzzle. This is a card hand management efficiency puzzle, and it is a hardcore Euro. This is much like Gloomhaven is tricking people and a lot of casuals, I think, into dropping hundreds of dollars on a game that they think is going to be Survivor the board game. I'm hunting and I find a weapon, and it's not. It's I have 4 cards, I have to turn 3 of them into 7 more cards, and then I have to build a thing that turns 2 cards into 14 cards because cards are my life, and that's the game. And right. A lot of people love that experience. But I think the people who are drawn to this game are not the people who the game is advertising to.
Interesting.
And I think it should be 2 hours for each scenario. Not 20 is crazy.
Those
they're not worth that. It's not worth the juice ain't worth the squeeze, baby.
There you got it. No, those epic story games are very, very tricky, right? I mean, even the short ones like the Betrayal in the House on the Hill, yeah, or Robinson Crusoe and things like that. They can have very, very different outcomes, and sometimes very unsatisfying outcomes, just because it's hard to. It's got to be a super hard writing challenge to make all the different decision spaces feel interesting at the end.
Well, I have a feeling I'll be getting rid of my Seventh Continent as soon as I get my Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon, which seems to me like a much more fun version of Seventh Continent to me.
You just keep falling for it.
I do every time. The game enthusiast.
All right, my number 1. Get ready for the hate mail, people.
Boy.
Here we go. Number 7. Number 7 on the Geek all time. Twilight Imperium.
Skexy.
People, I've owned Twilight Imperium.
Have you owned the 4th edition of Twilight Imperium?
I owned 3rd edition, and I watched a full hour of 4th edition play and read the entire rule book to see what the differences
are. Yeah, and then I
are.
went, I'm good.
It's 8 to 10 hours, and it's not good. It is.
Okay, well, hold on. Slow down on not good.
It is not good.
Wow.
I'm flat out. It is not good. Let me tell you, Matt. It is not good. Listen, people love this game. I love that you love this game. Nothing I say is going to change your mind.
It is
not
good to you.
Yeah. Listen, if you love this game, you are a psychopath. And
oh, jeez.
No.
Tom will be taking over the podcast in a week.
No. In all seriousness, it is swingy. There are cards that are infinitely better than other cards. If you have the Jolnar, you are already 50% of the way to victory. The powers are not very well balanced. But the worst sin is that it's a turtling game. And what that means is when you design war games, which essentially this is a form of a war game, the mechanics of the game either encourage blitzkrieg type strikes where you're assaulting things, is the advantage slightly given to the attacker or slightly given to the defender.
Right.
If it's given to the defender, it's a turtling game in which you grab something and then you just hunker down.
Everybody hunkers down, and then there's a giant fight at the end.
Correct.
Comes down to dice rolls.
The design of this game continues to be a turtler, and turtlers just make games very, very long, very static. very boring, and it's the only
To
thing
you.
that-
To you.
to me.
To you.
And the
Some
only thing-
people love that
Sure.
experience.
The only thing that changes that is the collection of the right set of slightly overpowered cards that will allow that,
Right.
or player powers that do that. I will say that we may be waiting a long time for the second edition of this game, but Eclipse is
Yep.
is
They had
game.
an update this week, December.
I've heard that before, but
Yeah.
yes, I
Last December.
I hope very much that it does come out. I will say that
I love Eclipse. I'm
is
excited
is
for
a
it.
wonderful game that if you like Twilight Imperium and
it's
get
3
mad,
hours.
get mad at what I'm saying, 3 to 4 hours, you play this game, and it might just scratch that same itch in a different way.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
My number one top 5 overrated game is the co-op darling of the last few years. This is Spirit Island.
I knew that was going to be your number one.
I don't like Spirit Island. I don't like it, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I think it's a lie. I think it's pandemic. I just think it's pandemic with gussied up components and a deck of interesting faux. I think all the game is I think it is. I love multiplayer solitaire, but not co-op. The whole point of co-op is we all have to work together. I have played a lot of Spirit Island. I've played hard Spirit Island. I've cranked up the difficulty. It's still, I'm putting out fires over here. Trey said it best, I think. We were playing once, and he goes, this game makes me feel like I'm the little kid at the pool, raising my hand, going, Mommy, 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 look, I'm going to do a double somersault off the thing. And then everybody turns to look at you as you go, I play this card, I play this card, I combo, and everybody goes, yay, you put out 9 fires in 1 turn. Good. Okay. It's just a game of raising your hand and going, Mommy, Mommy, look at I'm going to do a double dive into the pool. And everybody goes, yay. And then they turn back to their own little thing. And at the end of the game, you either won or you lost. And it's so boring.
Were you just a minute ago trying to calm me down from some of my vitriol? Just to be clear.
I have a problem with co-op games that are not the point of co-op games, which is that we're all working together and we're all getting in each other's way and and having fun as a group. It should feel like the Avengers coming together to take down Sauron. That's what it should feel like. I have not seen either Sauron. I've not seen the Avengers. I assume Sauron's in it. No, I have.
Your finger's on the pulse, man.
Yeah, when I played it, I love the card playing aspect and the asymmetrical aspect. Like I went in so excited. I couldn't have been more excited. It's like, oh, this is my co-op. I don't love co-ops. This is my co-op. And I realized I don't like any co-ops. So I thank this game for basically making me realize I don't like co-ops.
Ladies and gentlemen, this just got really, really dark. Thankfully, we're going to move to underrated games where we are lifting up the downfallen.
And we're going to do this very quickly.
We're going to do this super quickly. I have to start with an honorable mention. My number 6 is Pipeline. Do you realize that Pipeline is 964?
Yeah.
That's criminal.
It is
That game's great.
964. And when I looked into it, now listen, sometimes the Bayesian average is such that until it gets a lot of reviews, it can't get that high in the review average. But actually, when I looked into it, there are a lot of 7s and 8s and 6s for this game. I do not know what is going on, but this game, it needs better reviews because it is a fantastic game. I'm not going to talk more about it because we've reviewed it recently, but that was my honorable mention. My number 5 game is number 608 on the Geek. It's a game called Santiago. Santiago is an amazing economic game in which we are in the Cape Verde Islands and we are planting fields, and one person each round is going to lose the bidding for these fields, and instead he or she gets to be the canal overseer. The canal overseer decides where the water goes. Wherever the water doesn't go, your field doesn't grow. It is a brutal, brilliant, super simple. I can teach it to you in 5 minutes, and we can play it for an hour and a half, and it is super tense every single moment of the day. There is arguments and recriminations, and it is cutthroat and absolutely fantastic, and it virtually lost. 608 needs to be much higher.
My number 5 is ranked 3,250 on Board Game Geek, and it is one of the very best hidden trader games ever made. This is Rick and Morty Total Recall.
You know I love this game.
Rick and Morty Total Recall is awesome. And most people are just like, look, I'm with you. I don't think licensed games are ever good. Like they're usually crap, especially, no offense, I would assume a Rick and Morty game is crap.
By the way, and it is extremely faithful to one of the best Rick and Morty episodes ever.
Totally, called Total Recall. But this is such a good hidden trader game. If you like Avalon and Secret Hitler games like that, you have to try this. It's a wonderful twist on it because the person keeps changing.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Poopy Butthole, and I'm
Mr. Poopy Butthole is the person that you don't want to be in this
and
game.
I'm begging you not to kill me.
Yeah.
Please don't kill me.
It's
I'm not an alien.
It's like a $10 game, but it's so solid, and it's also one of the low player count games in terms of Hidden Trader. This is a 2 to 5 player game. You only need 2 or 5 player games. You can't say that about Resistance or Avalon.
And it plays excellent at 4 and 5. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I would only play it at 4 and 5, but 4 and 5. This is a great Hidden Trader game. Definitely check that out.
Totally agree.
I don't know how this one got lost. Yeah,
my number 4, 632 in the rankings.
Damn.
Ricochet Robots.
Yeah. Okay.
Ricochet Robots.
You love it.
Look, Alfred, go ahead. Say something.
It's fantastic.
It is so good. It is such a wonderful little puzzle where everybody is racing in real time to come up with a solution to a very interesting geometric puzzle on a map. It is, and you can play this with. I've played this with 30 people at the same time.
Yeah.
Because everybody just stands over the table, staring down at this thing, trying to figure out how to move the several different robots at the same time in order to create this solution where you can get this one particular robot to this one particular space on the factory floor. Absolutely phenomenal. By the way, amazing gateway game. It really is one of those things that opens people's eyes to, wow, I never heard of a game anything like this. So,
Yeah,
Ricochet Robot.
not for me.
Get it up.
Not for me.
Get it up.
My number 4 is an Uwe Rosenberg game that should be as loved as Feast for Odin or Agricola or Le Havre. This is Newsford. I think Newsford is as good as anything he's ever designed, and I think it is his best first Uwe Rosenberg game. And not in terms of it's not as strong as the others. I just think it's the easiest to learn and the fastest.
It's streamlined a little bit.
This is Uwe Rosenberg, usually has bloat and they're long and there's a million things. This is a knife fight in a telephone booth. This is fast. Whoa, my phone thought I said Siri, I think. That was so weird. Whose phone is that?
That's yours.
That's mine? I don't even know where it is. Okay. But I think Newsford, I don't know why everybody went crazy
Siri
about.
just agreed. Did you notice
Yeah,
that?
I know.
You talk about Newsford.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Do you know that iPhones, when you say the word Newsford, contact the NSA?
But I think that the problem is it's not a giant big box game. I think people think of Uwe as Feast for Odin and Caverna and these giant, massive, epic
Sure.
things. And Newsford is a regular sized box and it plays in 90 minutes and it plays to 5 players. Newsford is freaking awesome, and I don't know why we don't play it more.
We bought it and played it at Essen, and we had a great time.
Totally
with
the
it.
game of Essen for me.
Great time. My number 3 is number 565, Friedrich. I've talked about Friedrich a couple times before. Friedrich is it's sort of the lightest war game you can possibly have. It is phenomenal. It is about Friedrich of Prussia, who was fighting a 3-pronged war. He was fighting against the French, he was fighting against the Austrians, and he was fighting against the Russians at the same time.
Yep.
You play that conflict. All of the rules of the game are on a playing card. You look at a playing card and you learn everything you need to play that game. And 4 to 5 hours later, that game, you are going to be sweating with tension because the person who plays Friedrich is playing against all the other 3 players. Each of them is going for their victory condition. Your job as Friedrich is to outlast, is to make sure they don't make it to their victory conditions until eventually, one by one, they all drop off and lose. Absolutely.
Always wanted to play it.
One of the most elegant games I've ever seen. It's amazing. It's long, and the way players drop off can sometimes be a little unsatisfying, but it's truly an astonishing game that is, in terms of that elegance of super simple rules, super complex gameplay.
My number 3 is Argent the Consortium. If you like worker placement games and Harry Potter, Argent the Consortium is great. Here's why I think it's 412 on the Geek. Here's why I think more people don't love it, because I think it's a super solid game with some really interesting things. I think Level 99 Games has a tendency to have anime style art on all their games.
That's true.
And I think it turns people off. I think it just seems, I don't know why, but somehow in board games, anime art somehow sort of screams lower quality. or just like not, I don't know. It just doesn't, I think it turns off the Euro gamers a little bit, but this is a Euro game. I think and it has one of my favorite victory conditions ever in a game, which is that you don't know any of them. You have no idea what scores at the end of the game. They're all hidden.
Over the course of the game, you can uncover them and see them just for yourself.
You can gain loyalty with the masters, and they'll tell you what they're actually going to be grading the final test on. But until then, you don't know. I think it's a fantastic game.
I do not love the game, but every time I've played the game, I have to say I respect it every single time I play it. I'm like, wow, this is a really interesting design.
I think if it had more Eurocentric art or more fantasy and less anime is what I mean, I guess, I think it would be a big hit. I think it'd be a big deal.
I think it very well could.
Because the theme is, it really is Harry Potter, the board game.
I cannot believe that this is only my number 2 game, but my number 2 game on the underrated list is only because it's number 540, which is respectable, but not what it should be, Tribune.
Yeah.
Tribune is...
Yeah. I didn't put that on mine because I knew it would be high on yours.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it would be number 1.
So here's the deal. Karl-Heinz Schmiel, who did Democker, my favorite game of all time, did one of my other top 10 games of all time, which is Tribune. The first edition of Tribune, the base game of Tribune, is not a perfect game. It is an amazing game, but it probably deserves to be in the top 200. With the expansion, which is unfortunately
out of print and worth and at least $100 anywhere you get it.
Super hard to find, but with the expansion, it becomes a top 20 game. It is, first of all, it adds a 6th player to a very tight 5-player game, and that 6th player plays an entirely different game than the other 5 players. It is a brilliant design. I cannot stress that more highly. It adds several different. You're racing to be the first to, or to end the game by achieving 4 victory conditions or so. With the expansion, by adding 2 or 3 more victory conditions into the mix, it creates some very interesting synergies whereby many different players can go by many different avenues to race to that victory condition. It's amazing.
My number 2 is Madeira. Only 327. This is a top 100 game if there's ever been one. This is an amazing heavy game from Nuno Bizarro Sentiero and Paulo Soledad. Easily the best board game of 2013, and a new edition is going on Kickstarter next week, September 24th. You have to pick this up if you like heavy games and you don't know Madeira, you don't like heavy games. Go get Madeira. It's that good. It's 327 is ridiculous. I think it's a top 50 game.
I would say that if you were starting out in the hobby and you were just to buy every game that What's Your Game has made, you probably can't do wrong.
No, you'd be okay. And this is their best game.
They only make one game a year, and all of them have been excellent.
This is their best.
Number 1, here we go. 2,315.
Ooh.
Criminal. That fresh fish is that far down.
Friedman Friese, right?
Friedman Friese, that's right. His name begins with F, and therefore every game he makes starts with F.
Oh, man, is that true?
Check it out. Take a look. All of them have Fearsome Floors, Fresh Fish, Flippin' Floopin'.
Humble man.
What about Power Grid? Didn't he do Power Grid?
He did, but that's Funkenschlag.
Okay. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I just realized you're right.
You good for that? Okay, so here's the deal with Fresh Fish. Fresh Fish is a negative space game. It's an expropriation game, which means what you're doing over the course of the game is you're placing tiles on a blank square of a map, and the game decides by rules, sort of like by almost AI rules. The game will decide when roads need to go in. For instance,
right.
Every building has to have an entrance. And so when a building is almost entirely surrounded, a road must go next to that building so that there is an entrance to that building. All roads must connect to other roads so as the map fills out, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, you're going for the lowest possible score by having your 4 shops, the smallest number of road distances, to the 4 distribution centers for those items. Sure. So you're creating a little city. It is the most delicious little logic puzzle. It is very, very competitive. Absolutely wonderful game. Real problem with this game is production. The production values of this game. He did a recent redo of the game, and
oh, he did.
I
was just going to say, this game seems like it is screaming for a remake.
Unfortunately, I don't like what he did. The main game that they describe is not Fresh Fish. It's only the advanced version, which is barely mentioned at the end of the rule book that describes the the actual version of the game, and I don't like the art of that either. But the previous version, the plenary games, I believe, version, is not the most pretty game either. But at least it's better. I cannot more highly recommend. Listen, when you have a lot of games in your collection, you are looking for games that are absolutely just astonishingly perfect, or you're looking for games that are radically unique and different than everything else you've ever played. Ricochet Robots is definitely one of those, but Fresh Fish probably is the most unique game I have in my collection.
Every time you brought it to the table, I've always wondered for a second. I mean, something about I kind of forget sometimes what game it is because it has such a like the name differs from the gameplay a little bit. Maybe something in the theme just doesn't quite sing, and then you start playing, and it's so much fun, and it's so cutthroat, and it's all happening, and it's been a thoroughly satisfying experience. But I have to say that skin thing is tough.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's true.
My number 1 is Panamax. We love Panamax around here. Panamax is, Alfred, you love Panamax. Come on.
Alfred doesn't like
Pull it
Panamax.
together. Panamax is amazing. Panamax is a super heavy game that is Euro 18XX a little bit. There's stock there's stock purchasing, and you're pushing through your goods.
Yeah, ultra simplified 18XX. I think so. Yeah.
This is ranked 525 on the Geek, which is absolutely absurd to me.
For
This
shame.
is the second game on my list from Nuno Bizarro Sentiero and Paulo Soledad. Both of their games, I think they are criminally underrated as designers. They also did Madeira, and I think Panamax is their second best game, and I think it's absolutely incredible and worth your time, and also plays like nothing else and is super heavy.
I have to say, I do sometimes very much enjoy seeing this being in the 500s. So here's the deal. Trey and I go to Gen Con. We have LARPs all day Thursday, so we can only go and buy games on Friday. On Friday, we go to Stronghold Games, and we ask the guy who ends up being the owner of Stronghold Games. I said, yeah, we're looking for a copy of Panamax. He's like, guys, they're looking for a copy of Panamax. Like the most condescending.
Really?
We sold that out by noon yesterday.
Oh, jeez.
Just notorious, by the way. Lots of people know this guy's for that reputation, and it's happened on other games. Like
How strange.
The worst customer service ever.
Oh boy, you're going hard.
Love the game.
Yeah, great game.
Love the game. Hate the game maker.
Well, the publisher, not the designer.
Correct. Game designer's amazing.
All right, you left a bad taste in your mouth. Got it.